The Play Absolutely podcast with Dr. Sue Jennings and Dr. Andy Hickson. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Play Absolutely podcast. Hi Sue, how you doing?
I'm okay. Just
Yeah.
wondering how many ways are there that you can say play absolutely podcast before we have to start translating it into other languages, perhaps?
Oh, that's an idea. It's funny you should say that because I kind of feel I say it a very similar way every time, but am I changing it slightly as well? Hmm.
Well, the emphasis changes each time, so
Okay.
that makes a
Okay.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could have sort of pre-recorded one and just sort of shown that every time, but yeah, we haven't. So yeah, when it starts getting a bit dry and so on, we can have you doing the introduction of the Play Absolutely podcast. So
It's
how's this?
interesting.
Yeah, go on.
It is interesting that every so often people say, "Oh, I listened to your podcast yesterday."
Okay.
I said, "Well, please write in and tell us. We don't know unless you let us know." "Oh, I didn't think of that."
Yeah, leave a
But
comment. Leave a comment.
yes, quite a lot of people have told me, and somebody rang up today to say, "Wait, tell me again. I've lost the connection. When is the podcast on?" So
5 o'clock every Tuesday.
and so far so good. It is every Tuesday.
So far, I mean, this will be, I believe, the 25th episode. Wow.
Great.
25 on the trot. We haven't missed a Tuesday yet.
And
Fingers crossed.
of course, it's quite useful a Tuesday because then you don't interrupt with holidays. Which, if it was a Monday or a Friday, you'd get that as well.
Yeah, apart from sort of half terms and summer holidays and things like that. But Easter coming up.
So, anything in the news this time, Andy?
Oh, this week in the news. Oh, we're jumping straight there, are we? We do have some things in the news. Let me see. What do we have? We have, this week's Play in the News. First, a story from the UK government with the headline, High Streets Revived and Children Given Safe Places to Play. So the UK government has announced a £319 million Pride in Place, they call it, package, saying part of the aim is to help communities revive local high streets and create safer places for children to play. Now that matters because it frames play not as an optional extra, but as part of neighbourhood renewal and public life. It is not play as a decorative playground add-on. It is play as a planning and community design issue tied to where children can actually exist, move and gather. Now, this supports the wider argument that child development does not begin and end at the end of the school gate. If neighbourhoods are hostile, commercialised or even overregulated, schools end up carrying too much of the burden for well-being, belonging and expression. So play has entered the language of regeneration again, and that matters because where children are allowed to be, children is just a planning issue, not just a parenting issue. Now, from abroad... Oh, did you want to comment on that?
Could I just comment on that, though? Because I would love to know who is advising the government at the moment. Because there seems to be in several recent play initiatives that we never had in place before.
No, well,
I think that's exciting.
I believe that certain members of the government are listening to our podcast, the Play Absolutely podcast.
Well, that would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So affecting government policy now. But let's believe we are until we're told otherwise. Now, we did a few podcasts back bring a story about the Lebanon. And so from abroad, we're going to revisit Lebanon Okay. Now, this story is from multiple sources, including Reuters, UNICEF, Relief Web, Right to Play, and Bond, with the title In Conflict, Play Becomes Protection, Recovery, and a Way Back to Learning. The violence in Lebanon is killing or injuring the equivalent of one classroom of children every day, with hundreds of thousands of children displaced and many schools turned into shelters, if not bombed. In that context, Right to Play's current evidence briefing argues that play-based psychosocial support is not a luxury in crisis settings, but a route to healing, regulation, and continued learning. Here, play is not a
Excellent.
soft extra. It's being used as protection, trauma support, and a way to help children recover
Mhm.
routines, relationships, and a sense of agency after violence. That is a very different register from the trivial way play is often used in richer countries. Now, this has a strong lesson for education everywhere, where children are dysregulated, frightened, displaced, or carrying grief. Re-engagement often starts through safe, structured, embodied relational activity before it returns to formal instruction.
Mm.
It leaves me with the question, how can the UK schools learn from play-based psychosocial approaches without pretending ordinary schooling is a war zone?
Mm.
What parts of trauma-informed practice are really just better understanding of play, safety, and relationships? That's this week's Play in the News.
Mm.
Wow, so
Well, that
two,
second one from Lebanon, I think, is very, very interesting because it says it loud and clear, the
yeah,
relevance of play in this situation. And
hmm
I like this idea of the route back to learning
yeah,
comes from play. And of course, our mutual friend and colleague Muli Lahad
hmm,
based his research on shelters where children had to stay for a long period of time. And the way he evolved his 6-part story way of assessing children was actually based on observations of children in shelters and the way they
right,
coped with stress. Because he
hmm.
said there were 6 ways that they dealt with the stress.
6 ways.
Which is
Okay.
why he's evolved this idea of the 6-part story. So
Hmm.
one way was very physical.
So
They
there's
would dance together.
the 6-part story. What's part one?
Mm. Well, the 6 elements to be aware of to start with. One
Right,
is physical movement, the physical
physical movement.
side,
Hmm
which might be play fighting, it might be dancing, it might be sport, but it's physical.
Okay. And part two?
One is belief, that some children would be praying, some children would be singing hymns together, some children would state that they believed good would happen in the end.
Okay. So it doesn't have to be religious belief.
No, but it has to be belief in other than oneself, so
Right.
to speak. Affect, meaning feelings,
Hmm.
how people felt about things. And some children were distressed or crying or expressing some other sort of emotion.
Right.
Others were being social, interacting with others,
hmm
playing in groups rather than on their own.
Okay. So that's 4 parts. 2 more?
Others were thinking through the logic of the situation.
Hmm
Well, we've been here 2 hours so far. It'll be dark soon, then we'll have to do such and such. So it was a very logical
Okay.
analysis of what was going on.
Right.
So is that 5?
That's 5. Yeah.
And the 6th one, imagination.
Oh,
Those doing let's pretend stories, storytelling of different sorts, and so on. And Lahad says that those are the 6 ways we meet the world.
Well, I think Lahad, or Mooley, I'll call him, uh, it will be very pleased if he listens to this podcast that you, without reading them, have been able to remember all six. Because I put you on the spot.
No, that was fine.
Yeah.
And so he evolved this storytelling method to look at which of those 6 ways of meeting the world was dominant in the child's story.
Oh, right.
Because he said that was the basis of any intervention we might make. So if a child created a very logical story, then it wouldn't make any sense in trying to get into their feelings in therapy.
Okay.
So, yes, I mean, people can easily find the methodology to use the story. It's online and so on, this 6-part story. But what is good about it, it emphasizes what children can do, not what they can't do. And so many assessments are to do with what people can't do. Is it any wonder that children and adults as well end up feeling demoralized after having an assessment?
Indeed. Now, I mean, there are so many fantastic practitioners that work in war-torn countries with children. One that we've talked about before is Guli Shanina. And I mean, we've mentioned the Lebanon. He's worked in the Lebanon. He's worked in Beirut and other places around the Middle East region, which is currently under tremendous war pressure. We won't go into the politics of that right now. But have you had any ideas from such practitioners where we can use some of the techniques that maybe they use in cases where children and people are suffering extreme trauma of war, that we can utilize outside of war or extreme trauma situation for the benefit of children?
Well, Guli's main approach that he uses in the field is what he calls psychosocial theatre. So, whereas we're more used to the term social theatre,
Right.
he
So is
brings in.
psychosocial theatre essentially social theatre, is it?
So, it's social theatre that includes a psychological dimension.
Okay. So
When
do you have an...
I've done some work for him, we've worked with social theatre themes, but adapting them to the fact that we're working with people, often refugees, people who've been excluded, people who've been traumatized, who've witnessed things that at their age they shouldn't have witnessed. So sometimes people have the misguided belief that we get people to make a drama about what's going on in their lives at crisis point, when actually you need to make a drama of what's going on in a more optimistic, hopeful way than just repeating what's obviously. If somebody wants to talk about what's happened, that's their choice. But to impose that they reenact just what they've suffered is a way of re-traumatizing people.
Certainly can be, yeah. Why a lot of people, when they've experienced like trauma, like rape victims, for example, one of the reasons they don't want to go back, or they don't want to report it and go to court, is that they have to experience a lot of the accounts, the feelings of it, by recounting it in a court of law and so on.
Well, there was an interesting piece of research with Holocaust survivors some years ago now, and a group of people were divided into 2 subgroups, and one group had traditional psychoanalysis where they were encouraged very strongly to remember all that happened and talk about all the trauma of what actually happened to them in the camps. The other group had a quite different creative intervention of people using their creativity to do storytelling or create models or paint pictures or whatever.
Right.
And the future prediction afterwards that the people who you had the creative intervention survived much better than those who'd had the forced memory of what had actually happened to them. Because I think we need to really understand what forgetting is all about. I think sometimes our brains want us to forget to act in a protective way.
Yeah.
And that we don't necessarily need to remember certain things. I mean, obviously that doesn't help when we're asked to recall things to, say, tell the police about or write a report about or be a witness to. But I think sometimes some of the worst atrocities that we may witness or may happen to us need to be forgotten.
Yes, I mean, I'm going to give two parts to this because it reminds me again of a Holocaust survivor who he wrote about this. One of the things that I remember from his story was that in the camps, you would never wake somebody up that looked like they were having a nightmare, like you might do here if somebody was fitting and looking like they have a nightmare. You might sort of wake them up to like, it's okay. It was always said that because the nightmare that they would wake up to was more likely much worse than the nightmare they were actually dreaming about. So yeah, that was a thing. So in the camps, you would never wake somebody up if you were scared they were having a nightmare. But then in contrast, so moving on from I mean, this was Second World War, of course. Moving on now, in the state of Israel, I believe, comment if I'm wrong here, but from the reports I've read, is that Israel is the only country in the world that has prisons for children. And I think they've got the highest concentration of children prisoners anywhere in the world. And as an example, I won't go too deep into it. If a Palestinian child throws a stone at a soldier or somebody, I think the minimum is 3 months in prison they'll get for that, for throwing a stone at a tank or something like that. So scary stuff. Some childhoods around the world are unbelievably traumatic.
Well, I was thinking in particular of children recruited as soldiers in certain African countries.
Yes, of course.
Where they're brainwashed against their families. So they have to declare that they'd be prepared to shoot members of their family if necessary.
Wow. And I mean, there's horrific reports. I don't know exactly, but sort of still on this topic is that around the world, hundreds of thousands of children go missing every year from various countries, and nobody knows where they are. I mean, what happens to these children? It's a scary thought.
Very scary.
And it's not just in Africa and places. You're talking about the UK has a missing children problem. The United States of America has one of the worst, I believe. Yeah. Anyway, let's see if we can get on more playful activities. I'm going to play again with your nose. We haven't mentioned, because you've had the plaster on for several weeks now.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll
have gone in the
be
next one,
another
will it?
week.
Okay. Okay. But you had some
Any...
treatment and it's covered up. But yeah, we
That's
haven't
right.
said in case somebody's new to the podcast, we're just saying you're not wearing a plaster because you haven't got a nose. It's that you've had an operation on your nose.
That's right. And
Yeah.
the wound itself doesn't look very nice,
Yeah.
but it's more about protecting it hygiene-wise and from accidentally knocking it, for example.
Mm,
But finally, the stitches will dissolve in a few days' time,
okay.
and then the
But,
plaster can come off.
right. Be careful. Your volume suddenly increased just then. I'm not sure if you knocked your
Oh,
microphone or
I
not.
didn't touch anything.
Okay. So, you had a new topic that you wanted to talk about in relation to play in this podcast.
Yes, quite right. It's a question of observing that some people indulge in repetitive play.
Okay, sorry, you can't adjust your mic because it'll affect the whole track. So put it back down again before you. Yeah, you took it up.
Is that right?
No, it's still loud. You're going to need. I know you're scared of the headphones slipping off your head, but just put it down to what it was.
That's as far as it'll go. Is that all right?
Okay. Yeah, but it's louder. Okay, carry on.
Well, I'm still pondering it. I'm still thinking about this topic.
Okay.
But how some people seem to find a little play routine
Hmm.
satisfying in some way. And what
Okay, what
started off as something playful then gets entrenched and gets continuously repeated.
what kind of ritualized?
Yes.
Okay.
And I wonder at what point does that stop being playful and become a stereotyped response?
Hmm. Can you give it as an example?
Well, what came to mind was quite an extreme example, which I think I've shared with you, of many years ago when I was working in Germany in a very large hospital for people with severe learning difficulties.
Hmm.
And we went there with a project. They'd never had anything approaching play and drama in this large institution
Right.
and welcomed us and supported us. And on my tour around the hospital, I noticed several people isolated on their own, rocking or head banging or doing repetitive movement.
Right.
And I asked if I could work with one of them.
Hmm.
And they said, "Oh, you're wasting your time." They always do that. If you go near them, they'll run away and do it somewhere else.
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, I'd like to try with one." And this was a young man whose chronological age was 19 or 20.
Okay.
But the staff said that his IQ was so low it
Hmm.
wasn't measurable.
Right.
And the viewers can try this. I've got my students to try it. He put two fingers near his nose,
Hmm.
his elbow up high,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'd rock on the balls of his feet forward and back,
Okay.
just spring from front to back the whole
Hmm.
time, over and over and over again. I was just playing a hunch because I wanted to find out, could this be interrupted? So they gave me a big space, and the first day I went and I just got a few feet inside the door, greeted him, and then started doing exactly the same as he was doing.
Right.
Mind you, it takes so much energy, you can't do it for very long. After 15 minutes, I couldn't keep it up.
So
But then I
can I
said,
just before you carry on the story? So when you were mimicking him, you were doing it in such a way to make him not feel that you were sort of, sort of taking the mickey out of him, kind of thing.
well, he would have reacted, I think, if he felt that.
Okay.
Because I didn't laugh at him. I greeted him respectfully
Mm.
and just did what he did. And
Okay.
each day I moved a couple of feet nearer
Mm. And did the same thing.
and did exactly the same thing, same greeting, same repetition. And by the end of the first week, he
Mm.
allowed me to be near him, 2 or 3 feet away.
Okay.
And at that moment, he turned and looked at me and smiled. There was eye contact,
Wow.
which was amazing. So I wanted to see if, since I had been copying him, would he copy me?
Mm.
So all I did was just slow it down. So it was going about a third of, and he copied me and he slowed
Mm.
down. And
Mm.
then he gave a wicked grin and went 3 times as fast. But he'd begun to play.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what had become this stereotype, repetitive, all day movement that the staff
Mm.
couldn't, they said, it's nothing he can do. He had started to play.
So would you call that what he was doing a ritual?
I don't like to use the word ritual outside of a cultural context.
Okay. So,
Um,
just on that. So remember
I
where you
call it
are in this.
stereotyped, yeah. Mm.
Remember where you are in the story, because one of an activity that I love doing with actors when we're rehearsing a play, for example, is to get group members to come up with their own ritual that they can share with each other. No,
Mhm.
I call it a ritual. So there's two things here. One is, uh, it's not within a cultural context, and it's something they've made up. So do you think, A, that I can call that a ritual? And B, before we've even got to that point, we do talk about rituals, and I get the performers, the group members to suggest different kinds of rituals that they know about. And without exception, I would say every time at least one person has said brushing your teeth is a ritual. Now, in my mind,
It's a habit.
that's a habit. Yeah, it's a useful habit. It's not a ritual
Yeah.
as such. Although I think you could probably create a ritual around it, but just repeating something every single day, does that make it a ritual? So, let's say, I know those are the two questions. What actually makes a ritual, and can what I'm doing be classed as creating a ritual?
Well, I suppose I tend to be more of a purist anthropologist in this. And I got very tired of people using the word ritual in a very sloppy way,
Yeah.
as you say, like the teeth cleaning.
Hmm.
So I tend only to use the word ritual in relation to a known phenomenon within a culture.
And
Like everybody
that doesn't
everybody
just
knows
mean
what to do at a wedding, for example,
right. Yeah.
and so on and so forth. Which again, some people would say no, aren't rituals, they're ceremonies. But then we're
Okay.
getting into difficult areas.
Hmm.
So nevertheless, having stated that so emphatically, I evolved a whole assessment technique called ritual and risk,
Yes.
where some children repeated something, some children tried something new. So I really have got to be a bit more flexible than I was. So
Okay.
let's call what this young man was doing ritualistic.
Ritualistic.
Okay.
Okay.
So we did it faster and slower, and then I tried going side to side instead of forward and back.
Hmm.
And he thought this was hilarious, but he tried it.
Right.
So my next step was whether he was willing to relate to anyone else other than me.
Ah.
So the hospital found another group member for me who was similar to him in age and so on. And I had a colleague working with me who played the guitar. So we tried the big risk of bringing them together to see whether together they would join in very simple music and movement. And they did. And we held hands in a little circle. And we
Held
did.
hands even. Wow.
Now, if ever my client got stressed, he would immediately jump up and go over to a corner and go back to this again. But slowly, he was able to interrupt that and join in, A, with somebody else, and B, with movement that was different. I mean, I was only sorry I couldn't work at that hospital long term because I was on a 3-month visit, because that needed consolidating and following through. But that's where a repetitive, ritualistic movement was kept going until somebody found a way to interrupt it.
Yeah.
And turn it into something more playful.
So, I mean, that all started with an interruption to you talking about
Repetitive
play. So, anything more to add on that?
Well, I think people have their favourite objects which they'll take away with them on holiday. A little mascot or a family picture or something. It's an interesting exercise to ask people.
Is that playful?
Apart from people, if your house was on fire, what's the first thing you would remove from it? That's all obvious. Often a precious object or something.
My stash of diamonds.
I mean, but people want constancy. And I think sometimes when certain children's behavior is dismissed,
Right.
we haven't spent enough time looking at the underlying reasons they might do that. And very often it's a way of keeping security, doing the known, rather than venturing into the unknown.
Maybe
which goes right back to NDP, neurodramatic play, rhythmic play, and messy play. The rhythm keeps the security. The messy play is the adventure. And at any time, my theory is that people want a balance of that.
So just getting back to something you said, what's the difference, do you think, between a celebration and a ritual?
I'm not clear what.
Okay, let me start. Let me restart. If I'm going to say some things, and you tell me whether they're celebrations, rituals, or something else, and then see if we can find a line. So we'll start easy. So like a little quiz, all right? But no prizes at the end of it. Christmas. Celebration, ritual, or something else?
I think it's several things all rolled into one.
Okay. Okay, so if you're religious, you're celebrating Jesus and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yes,
but it's a ritual that we're all engaged in.
But for other people, it's like a social ritual. There are certain things you do, there's certain food that you eat, certain clothes you wear, certain decorations. I mean, it has all the trappings, doesn't it?
So is part of what it is a ritual?
I suppose so, yes.
Okay. And would you say that sort of like if we go to things like Easter, same similar kind of thing?
Well, of course, Easter's based on much earlier pagan rituals.
Okay.
I mean, the seasonal rituals to do with fertility are very, very ancient. And
I mean,
so many of the religious celebrations were superimposed onto them.
a lot of people talk about, this is what I was trying to sort of get away from, is a lot of people talk about rituals as being something that kind of ancient societies did, or kind of I was going to say kind of non-Western kind of style, so if I said to you a gabug, a sewang, for the Temiar, celebration or ritual or something else.
Oh, it's very much a healing ritual with them.
So that's a healing ritual. Okay, so that's a ritual. What about Guy Fawkes Night?
Guy Fawkes Night is so macabre, isn't it?
It's a tough one, though, isn't it? Because some of how we might classify these things does have something to do with stereotypes, I think.
But you see, if you think about going to a hospital in modern times for a procedure, whatever that might be, there are certain things will happen because the surgeon will wear a mask, even though it's been proved, scientifically proved, that wearing a mask makes absolutely no difference.
Right. It's the washing the hands is the big thing, isn't it?
They did a piece of research comparing two operating theatres, one where the surgeon always wore a mask and the other one the surgeon didn't wear a mask at all. And there was absolutely no difference between health outcomes and later infection or anything like that.
Don't they say that there's been a few reports about COVID and the wearing of masks, that wearing a mask doesn't actually help, in terms of the transmission and so on of
so if you're going for your surgical procedure,
yeah,
where there are these known factors, things you have to wear a special costume, your hospital gown, don't you?
Yes.
And so on. The man doing it all, usually, though I think we're getting a few more famous female surgeons, but they wear masks. What difference is that between that and the Temiar healing ritual? It's got all the symbolic elements in it, hasn't it?
The Temiar healing ritual is a lot more fun and energized.
Yes. So when I had my first operation on my eyes, I asked if I could take a CD along to play, and they agreed.
Okay, that was good.
So that was very nice. So I at least was operated on to music.
Wow. Okay, well, listen, unless there's anything else jump out that you want to say in this week's podcast, because we've stretched the length. Say. You've had your say. Okay, so we always end our pods with an activity, a playful activity that people can do if they're feeling the blues, feeling down, a little bit anxious, maybe. What have you got for our viewers this week, Sue?
Well, carrying on from my last one about shakers. This time, use any small box. I mean, matchboxes are far less readily available because we don't use matches so often anymore. But that sort of size of box, or a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And if you put several rubber bands round it, you've got your own musical instrument. And you can start plucking the rubber bands to make sounds.
You can. Wow. Okay. Well, my activity is a favourite of yours, I believe. And it kind of relates to our earlier stories about Lebanon and how children, and not just children, but people are suffering in the various wars that are happening now. And this is den building. It's creating a safe space. And I think you can do this in all kinds of circumstances, even if there are explosions or shouting or whatever going on outside of your den. As you can create a den anywhere. You can create a den under a table, in a box, a larger box than a matchbox. sort of in a bunk bed, in all kinds of spaces. And for a temporary period anyway, you use blankets, pillows, or all kinds of thing, that can become your safe space. And I think, den building, that's something that both children and adults can engage in. And there's actually a nice playful activity that parents can do with their children too. Yeah. So that's, yeah. Okay. So end of this pod. It's been great to chat with you again, Sue. I look forward to the next episode. But for now, let's please remind our viewers to leave a comment. Leave a comment down there. Like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps the algorithm. But for now, I will say goodbye, and don't forget to play.
Exactly. I will also say, keep playing. You'll feel better.
Bye-bye.
Bye.